Hey, you guys, Erin here, back with another moon update for you. I'm going to be talking about the full moon we've got coming up here on Monday, July 3rd. It peaks at 4:38 a.m. Pacific time, so you might want to see what time it actually peaks for your location. Now, this is in the sign of Capricorn, 11 degrees Capricorn. And as with any full moon, this is the peak of a growth cycle that began approximately 6 months ago when we had a new moon in the sign of Capricorn. Over these 6 months, we've all been experiencing an opportunity for growth that is related to the sign of Capricorn. Okay, now this is the peak of that growth cycle. This is a time to honor our growth that is related to this sign. But it's also, as soon as this moon begins to wane, and this is an important one for this particular transit, as soon as this moon begins to wane, it's time to let go of any of this Capricornian energy that you may have picked up on that is not serving you. Okay, so in this recording, I'm going to break down this sign of Capricorn for you so you know what you're working with here. I'm also going to be talking about certain parts of the body that are ruled by the sign of Capricorn, because these parts of our body become more sensitive when the moon transits through Capricorn, especially when it's a full moon in Capricorn. And I'm also going to be talking about some herbal remedies to kind of help support our bodies during this lunar transit. And I'm also going to be talking about gemstones that really resonate well with the sign of Capricorn. And of course, I will also be pulling up the chart to show you some very, very powerful energies that we are currently receiving. This full moon is quite powerful. It's not like a super moon or anything, but it's the first full moon of summer, but it's also the last full moon with the north and south node in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio. And there's something really special going on. So I want to share some information about that. So of course, I'll pull up the chart and we'll go through all those details. Okay, so let's start with the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is what we call the cardinal earth sign. Okay, now when I say cardinal, what I'm talking about is force that comes through. I almost said fixed because there's a little bit of fixed energy coming through here as well. But regardless, this is a cardinal sign that comes with force. Okay, it's a very ambitious energy, especially because it's in the element of earth. Okay, now all the earth signs tend to be a little better at taking care of the earthly responsibilities. Okay, the sign of Capricorn has a lot to do with work, like working hard, okay, to become the boss. Okay, it has a lot to do with things like authority. The sign of Capricorn does. Not only that, but really the motto for the sign of Capricorn is I use. Okay, this sign has a lot to do with using what's in your environment to build. Okay, it's the sign of Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Now, Saturn is the builder. Okay, he rules over structures. The sign of Capricorn has a lot to do with structures, rules over like the structures of our civilization. Okay, and the structure of our bodies. But this Saturnian influence comes through. Saturn kind of gets a bad rep in astrology because he is the great malefic, okay? Because he is rigid. He makes the rules, okay? He brings the discipline. He will force you to take care of responsibilities during certain transits. Saturn, if there's something you haven't taken care of yet, Saturn comes along, man, he's going to crack the whip on you to take care of that responsibility. That said, this sign of Capricorn can tend to be very good at taking care of responsibilities, with Capricorn being its ruler. And it uses what's in its environment to build that, to make it work, taking care of things. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to everybody. How have you grown in these ways? Now, also, this sign of Capricorn is most commonly associated with the mountain goat, okay, or represented by the mountain goat. The mountain goat that is this like sure-footed animal that will take advantage of every foothold to climb to the top of the mountain and be on top like a boss. Okay, not only that, but the mountain goat that will butt its way through obstructions, whatever gets in its way. It's like, I've got to get through this. I got stuff to take care of. It's a very, very strong and ambitious energy. So again, how have you grown in these ways? What have you been using to build what you want to build? Now, it's really a huge advantage to know which area of your life this is coming through, because you could be trying to build up your karma, or you could be trying to build up your career. You could be trying to build up your relationship, or trying to build up your communication skills and speak with authority. Again, so much of this depends on your own natal chart, but if that's too much for you, that's perfectly okay. Just focus on what you've been trying to build. What have you been using to try and build it? Honor yourself for that. But also, if you've been trying to build something and it's not working out for you, whether it be you're building your karma or whatever it is, whatever you're trying to build, if something is just not working for you, and I'm going to use kind of a silly example here because it's just what came to my head, but let's say you're trying to build a shed, okay? Trying to build a shed with this Capricorn energy, this structure to get through this, but these darn screws, these screws are just not working for me. They're too short or whatever it is. Why would you keep trying to build with those same darn screws if they're not working for you? Get rid of those screws and get some new screws. That's what this is all about. Letting go of the things that are not helping you build what you're trying to build. Again, that's as soon as that moon starts to wane. And I'm telling you, if you pull your journal out and write this stuff down, it's not going to change overnight. Of course not. This stuff works in cycles. Okay. This is like, generally, there's so much more to this, but it kind of works in like these 6-month cycles. But if you write this stuff down, it's massively beneficial. Okay, so there's that. I hope I kind of gave you guys an idea as to how to work with this Capricorn energy. I'm going to pull up the chart now and try not to get too carried away and try not to ramble too much, because there really is a lot going on astrologically right now. And I think a lot of people are feeling it. Okay, so for starters, I work with geocentric Western astrology. So with that said, what we're looking at here is basically a snapshot of the tropical zodiac at the time of this full moon. Now, just as an example here, here's the moon right here. Here's the glyph for the moon, and here's the glyph for the sign of Capricorn. Okay, in fact, let me make myself a little smaller here. Look, this little symbol right here, that's just a slightly bigger version of that glyph for the symbol of for the sign of Capricorn. Okay, look to see in your own natal chart, if you're interested in this. I don't want to overwhelm anybody. If you're interested in this, pull up your natal chart, and you can get a free copy of your natal chart through so many different websites, or you can just get an app on your phone or whatever. If you know what time you were born, you're going to be able to see, you're going to look at something that looks at least recognizably similar to this. Personally, I like working with something called the whole sign house system, but a lot of people work with Placidus, and that's fine too. Regardless, you're going to want to see where this little symbol for the sign of Capricorn, which house, which little slice of pie does it come through in your natal chart? Okay, like for an example, for myself, this sign of Capricorn, and I know some people are like, you shouldn't share your natal chart with people online. I'm over that. For me, myself, the sign of Capricorn, if I'm looking at my own natal chart, the sign of Capricorn comes through right here, the second house, which is the house of money, material possessions, and values. So for this particular full moon, I will be writing down the growth that I've experienced and what I've been trying to build financially and my value system, that sort of thing, but also writing down what I want to let go of that's not serving that area of my life related to this sign of Capricorn. Okay, for you, it could be coming through any other slice of pie. If your Capricorn rising is coming through your first house, your house of self, this is a major full moon for you. It could be coming through your 11th house. This would have to do with people who you're associated with, your groups of friends, your tribe, whatever. It's coming through up here, then you're stoked. It's coming through your house of career. I shouldn't say you're 100% stoked, because it kind of depends on the rest of your natal chart. But a lot of people who are in Aries rising and have Capricorn on their 10th house it just fits right there. The sign of Capricorn, this is a house of career and status life and recognition. Okay, it's coming through your 9th house, a house of higher learning and expanding the consciousness. For some people, it's coming down here, the house of home. You've been trying to build a home, that sort of thing. Over here, house of relationships. There's always clearly all these different areas of your life that this can be coming through. And I'm just trying to teach you guys how to do this stuff for yourself. Now, again, if you get a reading with me, you get a free, if you want it, a free video recording. So you can always go back to that recording and see which house in your natal chart, not just full moons or new moons or whatever, anything astrological. You can see which area of your life is being activated by that. Okay, so again, I don't mean to ramble, but I'm just trying to hope to make sense for some people here. That's my ultimate goal, is to teach people how to do this for themselves. Okay, so we're all experiencing this full moon at 11 degrees Capricorn. And by the way, again, I don't mean to overwhelm people with too much information here, but this particular chart is based on my location near Santa Cruz, California. And so for my location, the moon will be up here in this slice of pie. For everybody, it's going to be 11 degrees, but for some people, it could be down here, it could be over here, it could be over here, whatever. Depends on your location. But regardless, 11 degrees Capricorn, it's in the second decan or decan, pronounced depending on who's speaking here differently. That means that there's a little blend of Taurus energy as well, which is the fixed earth sign. That's going back to earlier, I almost said a fixed earth sign, because there's a little blend of that Taurus energy, which can stabilize this, okay, which can be really good. Not only that, but there's a ton of Taurus energy going on. So this is very, and not only that, but the sign of Taurus also has a lot to do with work, okay? And working hard to be able to buy things, be able to buy things that you want. The sign of Taurus has a lot to do with that. Okay, now, the next thing I'm going to talk about, this a lot of this might be feeling very difficult for some people, this energy of working hard and ambition, that sort of thing, because we have the sun right here going through the sign of Cancer, 11 degrees Cancer. Anytime we have a full moon, it means the sun and the moon are exactly opposite each other in the zodiac. Okay. It's like, they could be over here, they could be over here, whatever, but they have to be opposite each other. And that's in part why full moons are so powerful, because we have the two brightest lights in the sky facing each other. Okay. That's very powerful energy. A lot of people will be feeling like overwhelmed with intensity when we have full moons, that sort of thing. That's because those two brightest lights are facing each other. Okay. Now, but this sign of Cancer being opposite Capricorn is a sign of sensitivities. Okay. It's the sign of empathy and nurturing. The motto for the sign of Cancer is I feel. It's about feelings and emotions. And we really all should be kind of honoring the empathy and the feelings and the emotions while the sun is transiting through the sign of Cancer. We're going to be having a new moon in the sign of Cancer in a couple of weeks here. Which is such a lovely, nurturing, sweet, kind energy. Definitely could deal with mood swings because it feels everything. But we're all experiencing that the sun going through the sign of Cancer. Moreover, this right here is Mercury, which is very, very close to the sun. So they're blending together and working as one here. Now, Mercury has so much to do with our mental function. Okay, Mercury is basically, we're receiving information at all times of the day. We're receiving information. The information goes in, Mercury puts it in a file somewhere in our consciousness. And then when we want to communicate that information, Mercury goes in and finds that file so we can communicate it either verbally or through written material. Okay. And Mercury, he's the messenger of the gods. Okay. So he has so much to do with our communication skills, but moreover, our mental function and our nerves and that sort of thing. And in fact, a few days before this full moon, we're going to be having something called a Cazimi, which is when the sun and Mercury are in the exact same spot. And there's definitely pros and cons to that. But overall, I'd say some people really might be feeling some of this, like kind of heightened nerves and that sort of thing, or just almost overwhelming empathy, emotions, that sort of thing. Definitely could be going on, especially on the day of this full moon. So try not to get too wrapped up in the emotions and the feelings. Again, that's not going to be the case for everybody, but especially if you've got a bunch of stuff in your natal chart that's in the sign of Cancer, there might be a lot of stuff going on, even involving like mother stuff, something to do with either your children or your mother or something like that, because it's the sign that has so much to do with this motherly nurturing energy. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to talk about up here is Saturn. I'm kind of like going to buzz through this stuff. I'm getting to something that's very, very important. So just bear with me. I'll try to boogie through this stuff. Saturn is going through Pisces, and Saturn's a very important key player for this transit because he's the ruler of the full moon. Okay, Saturn rules Capricorn. So Saturn up in the sky is in retrograde. So he's a little grumpy, right? Not only that, but he's going through a zodiac sign that he doesn't really like to be in. He's going through the sign of Pisces. He entered into Pisces in March. He's going to be there all the way till March of 2026. And the reason I say he doesn't really like this is because, again, Saturn's responsibilities, do what you got to do. He's like the old grumpy man. In fact, he is Kronos. Okay. Kronos, who's like, looks like the Grim Reaper, who's wearing the black cloak and carries the scythe. Okay. And he's going through the sign of Pisces, which Pisces is the mystical energy that just doesn't want to take care of the earthly responsibilities. You're looking at a Pisces right here. Let me tell you something. That took me a long time to realize I had to take care of my earthly responsibilities. A very, very Piscean. So anywho, this Pisces energy wants to be mystical, and Saturn's going, no, you have responsibilities to take care of here. Okay. And so for some people, this really can be bringing, especially since Saturn in Pisces is trining, I basically having a conversation with Mercury and the sun in the sign of Cancer, and also making a sextile aspect, this green line going over the moon. Basically, Saturn is having a conversation with the sun and Mercury and with the full moon. Could definitely like kind of be Saturn bringing to our attention the sorrows of the world. Okay. The sign of Pisces can definitely deal with heavy emotions. It's also the sign of belief. Like, I believe, I have faith, that sort of thing. That's very Piscean energy. And Saturn's like, well, you can't just believe. You need to know the reality of things. Okay. That's very Saturnian energy. And that's in part why he struggles here in the sign of Pisces. But for myself, I'm always trying to find okay, what's the good part about this? There's got to be something good about this. There's always pros and cons to everything in astrology. And I think the really wonderful thing about this is there are a lot of there's so many people having these beautiful spiritual awakenings and heightening their intuition and going on these spiritual journeys and things like retreats, like meditation retreats and all kinds of wonderful mystical things. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Neptune, which is Pisces ruler, is also going through Pisces. Okay. I can't remember what year that starts. It's been many years. I think it's been like 8 years. Neptune's been going through Pisces, which makes things super dreamy and mystical and lovely, but also very confusing. Okay. Very, very, it's almost like it's so unearthly. It's hard to be focused, especially if you've got anything in your natal chart near 27 degrees Pisces. It might be a little, especially if it's like your sun or Mercury or something like that. It might be difficult to stay concentrating because Neptune's making things dreamy and foggy. But Saturn here, I like that he's bringing the reality. He's like, hey, stop falling for the charlatan mess. Let's get real here. We're having this very physical, material experience. You got to wake up and be, practical about things. Not only that, but Saturn actually rules the structure of crystals. In fact, Saturn really does rule all minerals, and crystals are minerals. Okay. But the building of them, the structure of them, Saturn rules that stuff. Okay. Whereas Pisces is more like loves the mystical, metaphysical side of crystals. And I do think Saturn's going through Pisces all the way until March of 2026. I do think this is a really excellent time to be studying crystals. Got a lot of really good astrological support for studying crystals and how they work. There's a really good book. It's called The Encyclopedia of Crystals by Judy Hall. That's where I get most of my crystal information from, but I also get it from certain medical astrology courses and sort of things like that. But anywho, there's that. Okay, let's see here. That wasn't as quick as I wanted it to be, but we did cover Neptune and Pisces as well. So for now, we'll move on quickly to Chiron going through Aries. Chiron is the wounded healer, like the karma of wounds that develop from early childhood. And we go through our life and we're offered opportunities to heal from those wounds. When we heal them, we become healers ourselves. Now, Aries is the sign of self. It's the sign of I am. Okay. It's a cardinal, forceful fire sign. And with that said, for so many people, this can be a really excellent time. For some people, this is a pretty heavy transit, but for some people, it's like a really good opportunity for healing ourselves, going after it. What do I got? What's it going to take to heal myself with this Chiron going through this strong sign of Aries? Not only that, but Chiron is trining, meaning harmonizing with these guys down here. This is exciting to talk about. I talked about this in my last video. Venus and Mars transiting together like a couple holding hands, going through the sign of Leo. Okay, so first of all, this is a sign of Leo. Leo is like the royalty of the zodiac. Okay, Leo is the king or the queen of the zodiac with courage. It's also the lion. It's ruled by the sun, the brightest light in the sky. It really is such a fabulous sign of vitality and strength. It's the fixed fire sign with energy, but energy it can hold on to. Okay, now, first of all, we've got Venus here, which Venus, she's the influencer of love and romance and beauty and poetry. She's feminine, she's soft, she's romantic, she's cuddly, and she's quite extravagant going to the sign of Leo. Furthermore, she's got her boyfriend here, her big, strong, tough boyfriend, Mars, who's like sometimes Mars is referred to as the planet of war because he's aggressive, he's dominant, he's masculine. Even just the glyph from Mars, he's meant to look like he's going to penetrate to something. He's very strong energy, especially going through the sign of Leo. I've mentioned this before, that every single client that I've worked with for a long time and I know about their lives, every single family, every single person I know who was born when Mars was transiting through Leo has literally gotten every single job that they've ever applied to. Because it's Leo, Mars coming through Leo. It's like this. I have the courage. I have the confidence. Okay. Now, and of course, if you have your Mars and Leo and you're not like that, there's things that can counteract it if it's opposing Saturn or something like that. But for the most part, this is such a great energy, especially because he can't be too aggressive. He can't be because his lady's there. She's like, calm down, honey. But I love this transit. It really is such a lovely transit. Again, not for everybody. If you got Leo in your 12th house, this might be a little heavier. Leo in your 8th house, it might be a little heavy. But if you got Leo in your 7th house, this could be great for romance and that sort of thing. Again, there's always things that can counteract this. So anything I say, if you're looking at it and it's in your natal chart, there might be, and you're like, that's not working for me. There might be something that's counteracting it. You got to look for things like in conjunct to Saturn, or even a square or an opposition to Saturn, or even if there's something involved with the South Node or something like that. But for the most part, as a collective that we are receiving this energy, it's vibrant and it's royal and it's fun. Okay, now Jupiter going through Taurus. So Jupiter going through Taurus, I kid you not, within the last week and a half, I've had 3 people text me that have no connection to each other at all. Just 3 totally separate people have texted me and been like, oh my God, what is going on? I'm gaining weight. Like, oh my God, one lady says my butt's getting big. And another one is like, I'm not even eating anything extra and I'm just gaining weight. Another one says my boobs are huge. What's going on around here? So Jupiter can do this, especially in the sign of Taurus. Okay, Jupiter, he is the expander. He's wonderful. Jupiter is the influencer of abundance and luck and faith and wisdom and philosophy, but he rules fat and he likes big things. Okay, he wants to expand them. And the sign of Taurus, that's what this little glyph is here. The sign of Taurus, it happens to be the sign who likes to consume, likes to eat. The sign of Taurus actually rules the taste buds, the tongue, the throat, all this whole area. Sign of Taurus. A lot of people have their, as I've mentioned before, a lot of people have their moon in Taurus. Sometimes this could be Venus in Taurus as well. They will eat when they're emotional, like the emotional eating. Okay. The sign of people have their sun in Taurus. A lot of times, not every single time, this doesn't mean everybody who's a Taurus loves to eat, but a lot of people who have their sun in Taurus or Taurus rising understand they love food. They love it. And if you're a healthy Taurus, if you're healthy Taurus energy, you love the quality of food, good, strong, healthy, hearty, organic, non-GMO, maybe even homegrown food. That's like the ultimate epitome of perfect Taurus energy, sort of. There's more to it, but there's nothing wrong with loving food, but as long as it's healthy food. Jupiter, who's ruling fat, and not only that, but the sign of Taurus tends to love sweets. Okay. This could be like, oh, let's get some cupcakes or, that sort of thing. Sweets, ice cream, something that's fat and sweet at the same time. That's very Jupiter going through Taurus energy. Not only that, but Jupiter is still pretty close to the North Node. The North Node energy brings stuff in. So there's a lot of that going on. So just be mindful of that. And gosh, there's so much more I can say. Full moons are, generally speaking, a really good time for enjoying a good meal. Okay, I'll actually get into that a little further along. We'll go into more detail on that in just a minute here. But first, let's move on to this right here is Uranus going through the sign of Taurus. As I mentioned, the sign of Taurus is the sign of consumption, not just consuming as in eating food, but it's also the sign of like consuming material things, buying things. Ooh, I like that. I want to buy that. Oh, I got to work hard to make the money that I can have to buy those things. It's really the sign of money as well. Money and material possessions, and also how you value those things. Now, Uranus brings revolutionary and abrupt changes. Uranus is the one, he rules things like technology. He wants the new stuff in and the old stuff out. Okay. And so we've seen what's been going on with our monetary systems. I mean, it's kind of a mess, and it has been for a long time, but at least people are starting to realize how much of a mess it is. The whole entire monetary system is really kind of a joke. If you really have looked into it, it's really kind of a nightmare. And really, money is it's not valuable at all. It doesn't hold any value. If there was an apocalypse, what is a freaking $100 bill going to do for you if the stores are closed, right? It's what's valuable is things like precious metals and gemstones and your heart and love. That's what's really valuable. But the sign of Taurus has so much to do with actual physical money. And here's Uranus bringing these abrupt things like digital currencies are being brought up. They're going to get wild. I really do feel very confident in saying that there's going to be some kind of a major digital currency thing. Uranus is going through Taurus. Gosh, I think it's another 2.5 years. I do think that there's going to be something that's like, hey, now there's this new way of cryptocurrency. But of course, the government's got their sticky fingers in it at this point. So there's that. Okay, now let's see here. This guy over here, that's a part of fortune. That's going to be different based on your location. So I'm not going to go into that. What I really want to get into, let's get into it now. Okay, let's start with Pluto. So Pluto, some of you know that I happen to, even though Pluto is considered a malefic, he's brutal. Okay, he is the ruler of the underworld. Pluto is Hades. Okay, and but for whatever reason, I love Pluto. I just think he's fascinating. I think it's one of the most fascinating things to study in astrology, because what Pluto wants, sometimes he's referred to as the planet of power, because he can give us power, but he doesn't just go, here's your power. You have to go through some kind of a very powerful transformation to receive that power. In fact, Pluto rules sewage. Okay, and that sounds horrible and gross, but it's about flushing things out. Pluto influences the whole process of degeneration and then regeneration. And it's like this: if you've got a plant, okay, oh, this plant, it grew, it's beautiful, it's powerful, with this powerful plant. Well, when the end of the season comes and that plant dies and decomposes into the soil, if that soil is properly nourished, or given the right kind of nutrients, that same plant can come back even more powerful the next time around, the next year, because that's that very Plutonian influence of degeneration, decomposing, and the decomposition can actually give nutrients to the soil. And then Pluto wants that to be more powerful. Okay, so Pluto, he is very brutal. He is the destroyer, but also, again, can definitely empower people. And he is working with extreme force. I mean, extreme force. And he's going to be all the way, I mean, really going on for like the next 4 years. But that's too much to go into right now. But Pluto currently right now, and he's going to do this again next year in 2024. 2024 is going to be wild. But he's at 29 degrees. This is what we call the anaretic degree. Okay, this is a very powerful energy, especially because it's Pluto. Anything that's at 29 degrees, it's kind of, it almost can bring out the shadow side, of the dark side of whatever that energy is. Sometimes it could be dangerous, that kind of energy. But moreover, Pluto's in retrograde. Very specifically, Pluto and Uranus, for those of you who are really studying astrology, this is a good one to learn. Pluto and Uranus are the two that tend to be even more powerful and aggressive when they are traveling backwards, when they're in retrograde. Okay, so we got Pluto in the anaretic degree and in retrograde. Now, we're all experiencing that. But what's even more powerful here is Pluto is going to be squaring the nodes. In fact, he's going to be squaring the nodes for, I think, a few months. But this particular transit, this full moon transit, is major for what I'm about to say. Okay, so pay attention to these squares. What I'm talking about is this is approximately a 90-degree angle. That's Pluto over here. Okay, here's Pluto. Here's this red line that goes from here to here. That's the north node. Okay, and then there's another red line that's going down here to this south node. So let's talk about these nodes, because this is another very important thing. And I'll probably be putting out another video over these next couple of weeks, because these nodes are changing zodiac signs for the first time since January of 2022. Woo! Okay, these nodes, a lot of you know how much I love the nodes. Okay, they are my #1 favorite topic in astrology. In ancient astrology, they are said to be more powerful than the sun and moon. In fact, these nodes are what make eclipses happen, and like the mythology behind how they swallow up the sun and the moon. Anytime we have any kind of eclipse, it has to be the sun and the moon aligned with the north and south node. Okay, and they swallow up whatever it is there. If it's a lunar eclipse, they're swallowing up the moon. If it's a solar eclipse, they're swallowing up the sun. Okay, and the word eclipse, by the way, actually is very much related to the word abandon. Okay, so these nodes, they're said to basically rule over the journey of our soul from lifetime to lifetime. Okay, this north node right here, also referred to as Rahu or the dragon's head. Keep in mind, this is a dragon. Dragons are ferocious. Okay, and there are, I've seen other some astrologers out there, talk about how the North Node is our destiny. Well, sure, it is. In our natal chart, the North Node has a lot, the whole natal chart is really our destiny, but the North Node has a lot to do with our destiny or the direction we're meant to be going in. But it's not rainbows and butterflies with glitter sprinkled on top. It's a ferocious energy. The North Node, this is it, the North and South Node, by the way, they are always opposite each other. They're not planets. What they are is they're points that sit on the moon's ecliptic. And the word node is actually Latin for knot. And it's basically a knot that ties the moon's ecliptic to the earth plane, okay? And so these nodes, they work like valves or like a pump. The energy, the celestial energy comes in through the dragon's head, the North Node. Okay, the South Node is the dragon's tail, also described as K2. That South Node, the dragon's tail, that's where energy goes out. Okay, this is the drain point for celestial energy. And these nodes work with extreme force in the zodiac signs that they've been going through since January of 2022. Here's the North Node going through Taurus. As I already went through, sign of Taurus is a sign of consuming food as well. Okay, that rules the throat, taste buds, all those sorts of things. And so the North Node, being the dragon's head, energy comes in with extreme force in the sign of Taurus. Celestial energy, powerful. That's another major reason we've been seeing all this crazy stuff going on with financial systems. Okay, the South Node works with extreme force in the sign of Scorpio, because the sign of Scorpio rules the other part of the body where things go out. It rules the colon, it rules the entire excretory system, including the sweat glands and even the nose. The sign of Scorpio is the sign of flushing things out, okay? It's the sign of transformation, and that transformational process comes through flushing out what's not working to make room for more powerful new beginnings. And you might be tripping out going, what did she just say the same thing about Pluto? Well, yes, they're tied together because Pluto is one of Scorpio's rulers. Pluto is basically what makes Scorpio what it is. It's very powerful, scorpionic. There's a reason why the sign of Scorpio is most commonly represented by the scorpion. Very powerful energy. But this energy is taking things out, flushing things out. If you are a Scorpio, you've probably had something taken out of your life over the last year and a half. And if you're a Taurus, you've probably had something come into your life over the last year and a half. For some of you, it's been wonderful and grand. You got a great new job or you got a new car. For some of you, it's been ferocious dragon energy bringing you troubles, okay? So, and I can't even explain to you how many Taurus people I have given readings to over the last year and a half who've been through, I'm just going to say it, they've been through hell. Okay, so there's that. Now these nodes, as you can see, I get so amped up talking about these nodes because they're so fascinating. These nodes, oh gosh, boy, for some people, I'm just going to overwhelm you with too much information. I apologize, but for some of you, I feel like you're really going to gain from this. These nodes are pretty much always in retrograde. So they go backwards through the chart, okay? The North Node started at 30 degrees Taurus in January of 2022. Now he's at 1 degrees Taurus. And now the same thing with the sign of Scorpio. The South Node started at 30 degrees Scorpio, and now is at 1 degree Scorpio. They go backwards. So what's going to happen here on July 17th, these nodes are going to change zodiac signs. The North Node's going to move into Aries. The South Node's going to move into Libra. And that's a whole nother video that hopefully I'll have time to get out to you guys over the next couple of weeks. But regardless, where I'm going with all this is that this is the last full moon with the nodes through these zodiac signs. Now, this is where things get really interesting. For some of you who've been watching my videos, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. For you guys who are new, let me explain that these nodes going through these zodiac signs is the ultimate opportunity to flush out toxicity, to get rid of what's not serving you, because that South Node going through Scorpio wants to flush out the toxicity. Okay. So, and again, this is the last full moon. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, as soon as this moon begins to wane, it's time to let things go, right? Well, guess what's going to happen here? Here's the moon at the time of this full moon. Well, as the next day goes by, the next 24 hours, the moon's going to trot along and going to pass up Pluto. The moon is like a distributor. She goes around distributing her light. Whatever sign she's going through, she's bringing that energy in. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great, blah, blah, blah. But she's going to be waning, getting smaller, letting go of things, transiting right over anoretic Pluto, the guy who wants us to flush things out, and making these strong connections to these nodes to flush things out. And this is the last opportunity that we will have for this kind of experience for 18 years. In fact, we will never have this kind of experience again, but these nodes won't be back in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio for 18 years. Okay, so let me explain something. Hopefully I made sense of that. And I hope you guys also understand that there's so much intense energy going on here. I mean, geez, we've also got the moon trining Jupiter, which makes things even a bigger deal. I mean, all kinds of aspects going on. But again, I don't want to make this too long. Hopefully you guys got the idea here that this is very intense energy, a lot going on, but it's also very, very powerful and opportunistic. Okay, so since this whole transit is happening, I've already talked about this. I mentioned when it's a full moon, it is a really good time to have a nice meal to enjoy because when the moon is a new moon, when it's a little moon, that's when it's on a general basis here. Now, let me make something clear. If you're really curious about this stuff, let's say you want to lose weight, or you want to, whatever it is, you want to flush something out of your life. Of course, I can take your natal chart and get finely tuned exactly when is the perfect time to do this or that or the other thing. But as a very good general rule of thumb, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis, as the moon grows, so when it's a new moon, it's little, and as the moon gets fuller, that's when I tend to eat more. My meals will get a little bigger. I'll have a little like more nourishment going in. A lot of you know I'm very particular about what I eat. I eat very healthy food. Okay, so I nourish my body as the moon is getting bigger. Then we have the full moon, we enjoy our meal. Then after the full moon, the moon starts to wane and get smaller. Okay, that's when I have less and less and less and less of the consuming. Okay, I'm letting my body detox. I'm letting my body flush things out. Okay, now again, some of you out there might be watching this and going, well, but this astrologer said depending on where the sun and the moon were when you were born, we can go even crazy more detailed with how to do this, but it's a clock up in the sky that's telling us what to do. It's not that hard to follow along here. So that moon is getting smaller. That's when we have less of a meal. Now, I will say this too. I know a lot of people talk about how a full moon is a really good time to detox. So you're probably like, well, why is it a good time to have a full meal, but also a good time to detox? Well, all right. So when we have a full moon, parasites, and we all have parasites. Okay. I don't care who you are, how healthy you eat, how often you detox, how many anti-parasite herbs you take. Everybody has parasites, especially living in the world that we live in today. Okay. Especially if you got animals, pets, whatever it is, we all have them. Well, when we have a full moon, those parasites become more active. There's a reason for the word lunatic, right? That people, it's not even, generally speaking, it's not even the people that are going crazy when it's full moon. It's the parasites. They're freaking out. They're more active. And so a lot of people will take a full moon and go, well, geez, if the parasites are active, I'm going to do a water fast and take a bunch of anti-parasitic herbs and try and kill them all with the full moon, which is fine. That works for some people. That's really, for some people, that's great. And I have done that. And what I've figured out for myself and what I generally, teach other people, again, there's certain things we can do, apply it to your own natal chart, but as a general rule of thumb, I like to work in the natural flow of things. So when it's a darker moon, a newer moon, yes, the parasites might not be as active, but that doesn't mean I still can't kill them. That doesn't mean I can't get rid of more parasites when it's a new moon. Okay, so there's that. But as a very good general rule of thumb, this is what I've been doing. Honestly, I think I've been doing this since 2015, maybe 2016, kind of following the moon and what the moon is doing. So as this moon, she's in her fullest form in the sign of ambition, okay, opposing the sign of feelings, the sun and the sign of feelings, Cancer. Okay, so that moon peaks. Intensity's going on, especially because that Pluto is squaring the nose, all kinds of intensities going on. Well, as soon as that moon begins to wane, again, you might want to see exactly what time this moon starts to wane in your location. If you're on the East Coast, it'd be 7:38 a.m. If you're over in the UK, geez, it'll just be, I can't even calculate it right now, but sometime in the late afternoon. So you might want to see exactly what time it peaks for you. But what I'm doing and what a few of my friends and I have organized, what we are doing is as soon as this moon starts to wane, so if it peaks at 4:38 a.m. in my area, hopefully I won't be awake at 4:38 a.m. You never know though, because I do have a cat that likes to wake me up very early in the morning. But hopefully it'll just be whenever I wake up on July 3rd, I know the moon is waning and I know what's going on astrologically. And I know that's a really good time to start a cleanse, to flush things out. Okay. Especially because that moon is going to go over Pluto, who's squaring those nodes. This is the last time. And this is going to be a 2-week cleanse. Okay. All the way until the new moon, which will be on July 17th, which happens to be the same day that the nodes change signs. So these last 2 weeks following this new moon is a very ideal opportunity to flush things out, I'm going to be doing a physical cleanse. I'll give you a little bit of a rundown as to what I'm going to do, but I don't want to overwhelm or bore anybody with this recording. Basically, the way that I've been doing this, and I have to say this, I'm not a doctor, don't claim to be a doctor. I'm not trying to give you any kind of medical advice. I'm telling you what I have done and what I have for many, many years and what I have done, learning stuff from a lot of really excellent nutritionists and detoxification coaches and medical astrology courses and obviously astrology, blah, blah, blah. So the first 7 days of this cleanse, since the moon's waning, that's the time to lessen the meals. But for the first 7 days after this full moon, I'll be having, and my group of friends, we will be having 1 meal a day, 1 very healthy meal a day, preferably raw vegetables, maybe slightly steamed or something like that, certainly not fried or whatever. A healthy vegetable-based meal. I definitely discourage things like white rice. I mean, if anything, you got to have a grain, then quinoa, preferably everything organic. Do what you can. Do what you have to work with. Don't feel intimidated if you're like, well, I can't afford organic. Then don't worry about that. Do what you can with what you have. This is a Capricorn full moon, right? So one, a healthy meal a day, absolutely no sodas. I would never drink a soda. I haven't had a soda like a Coke or a Pepsi in probably, I don't know, 20 years or something. That's just, to me, I can't even imagine drinking a soda. It's so bad for you guys. It's so bad. So, and especially the diet sodas, they're so bad for you. So nothing like that. Water, just water. And if anything, like if you need something other than water, like a fresh pressed green juice or something like that, something that's like low in don't want any kind of processed sugar, but something that's even low in like the sugars that come from vegetables, something like that. But water. And what I like to do is take a little dash of really good sea salt. I have a salt that's called Master Salt. It's like a blend of all these awesome sea salts from all over the world. But again, whatever kind of sea salt you have to work with, definitely do not do table salt. Like, what you buy from a regular grocery store. That's terrible for you too. It's processed to the nth degree. Real good sea salt, okay? Whether it be the pink salt, that's not my favorite by any means, but just like Icelandic sea salt is fantastic. Anything you can get your hands on that's good, normal, high quality sea salt. Put a little dash of that in the water, because believe it or not, that's actually going to help people stay hydrated. I also like to put a little dash of either lemon or lime in that water to help keep my body fully hydrated while I'm going through this detoxification process. Those first 7 days of just one, light, healthy meal a day. And again, for those 7 days, what I do is start out with a bigger meal, and the next day, a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller. Okay, then on day 8, we go to only liquids. Okay. And for some people, you have to just feel into this stuff. What works for you? I don't want to make anybody pass out or faint or something like that. You got to be careful, be mindful about what you're doing. But if you can manage, which most people can, it can be harder for some people than it is for others, but it's a plan that has helped so many people. I'm talking about people who've healed themselves from cancer because they've really mastered these kinds of cleanses. Okay, so liquids only, preferably like homemade soup broth. What I do is I buy a bunch of vegetables and I have a little, what do you call it? Like a slow cooker sort of thing, where you just put all the water and the vegetables in the pot, you turn it on for a few hours and let the broth be created. And if I'm being really strict about this, I actually drain the water out, the broth out, and I don't eat the vegetables. Depending on how strict I'm being, I don't eat the vegetables. I put them in my compost, so I'm not wasting them. They're going back into earth. And of course, I put all kinds of really good, like strong anti-parasitic herbs and whatever, again, I don't want to get carried away here with specific herbs. If you really want to know details, then please, even if it's just a, 30 minutes astrology reading, I can finely tune this thing for you. But really good, even if it's just oregano or whatever it is, good herbs that can help give your body not only nutrients, but also can help to detox. If I'm not being so strict, like if it's just day 8 and I want a little bit more of substance, then I'll just take that soup and I'll put it in the blender and blend it up so that I'm still drinking it. Basically, the whole point of this cleanse is to make it so your body doesn't have to work to digest food, to make it so your body is like, you probably, because you're killing parasites, especially if you're taking, when it comes to anti-parasitic herbs, my favorite supplement to take is something called RUG, R-U-G, which stands for Remove Unwanted Guests. It's got the whole shebang, every kind of good anti-parasitic herb that kills them in the liver and the guts and the colon and all sorts of things going on. That's my personal favorite, but there's so many different ways to go about this, just whatever you can do. But the whole point is to make it so our bodies don't have to work hard to digest the food. So our body can fight off bad things that are going on, can fight off the parasites and flush them out. Okay. And then also, if you're somebody who's really constipated, then you got to take that into consideration. Usually people aren't constipated at the end of this cleanse, but you might need to take something that, for that, I personally recommend something called Oxy Powder by Global Healing is really good. It's not habit forming unless you really are having serious problems, but that's a really good thing for flushing out the colon and stopping the constipation. But so we want to keep getting these liquids in, again, only water or fresh green juice or whatever. And then depending on your abilities or your ambition, this Capricorn energy, then you can switch down to only water for preferably 3 days, but not everybody can handle that. And take this into consideration. You do this the first time. Then I hear this so many times from people, and I know I experience this for myself as well, where I'm like, it's because the cleanse is basically 15 days long, 14 and a half days long, depending on what time you started it. But regardless, that when we get down to the end there, I'm like, oh, but I really, really need this green juice. So I'm going to have this green juice instead of just water or whatever it is. And then by the end of the cleanse, I'm like, I didn't need that. I totally could have done this with just water for 3 days. But again, not everybody can do that. But the more you do these things, the stronger your system becomes and you're able to get through it. But even if you can just do only water for the last half a day, that's great, because what we're doing here is we're getting less and less and less and less and less that's going in the body. The body's flushing things out. The body's stoked. Yes, you might be a little tired and you might need to rest a little bit. And if you're somebody who does heavy exercises, you might need to lighten the load on that. But when it gets to the end here, we will end the cleanse on the day of the new moon in the sign of Cancer. Okay. Not only that, but that's July 17th, the same exact day that the nodes change signs. So it's perfect. It's literally in perfect alignment. And I get it. This may not be for everybody, but I really wanted to share that because A, I'm excited about it. B, because I know it can help a lot of people. And it really is kind of like the last opportunity we have for this before these nodes change signs. It doesn't mean you won't be able to detox in a couple of months from now. Of course, you can detox anytime, but this is just in the flow, the natural flow of things, the holy flow. All right. So there's that. Now, body parts ruled by the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn it rules the knees. Okay. If you look this stuff up online, you're going to see Capricorn rules the knees, which is, okay, sure. The knees, they might become a little more sensitive when the moon transits through the sign of Capricorn, especially if you've already got injured knees or if you already have a lot of stuff in your natal chart of the sign of Capricorn. So might want to pay a little extra attention to your knees. But the sign of Capricorn also rules the entire structure of our body, our skeleton, even the skin that holds our body together. Okay, so this is a very important sign as far as the structure of our body goes. Capricorn even has a little bit of an influence on the teeth because that's part of the structure of our body. Moreover, the sign of Capricorn is also said to have a huge influence on the gallbladder. Okay, so that's another thing, is to take all this into consideration, taking care of our gallbladder. So many people have major gallbladder problems. And on a personal note, I unfortunately don't have a gallbladder anymore because many years ago, I was basically not forced, but I was really really talked into having my gallbladder removed by some doctors. And I really wish that I would have known then what I know now, because I know I've seen it with my own eyes on several different occasions, people flushing out gallstones through some kind of a detox cleanse. And I know I could have done that, but I didn't know that at the time. So I had my darn gallbladder taken out and I have to suffer repercussions for it. I have to take a lot of enzymes. It's part of the reason I have to eat so healthy in order to just be okay, is because I don't have a gallbladder. So there's that. Definitely want to pay a little extra attention to gallbladder. Don't be putting a bunch of garbage in. I mean, honestly, you should never be putting garbage in your body, but especially when it's a full moon, and especially when it's a full moon that is in a sign that has so much to do with our physical strength. Okay, so there's that. Now, also some herbs here. So interestingly, I was going to mention burdock root first. See, the sign of Capricorn being ruled by Saturn, as I mentioned, I believe I mentioned this earlier, Saturn rules minerals. Okay, the sign of Capricorn has a lot to do with minerals. This is a really good time to be thinking about the minerals in your body. And burdock root is very filled with minerals. And not only that, but burdock root could be extremely detoxifying, really not only detoxifying, but also grounding. Burdock root isn't, in my opinion, not the tastiest flavor in the world, but it's extremely good for the body. So burdock root could be a good one for this transit. Also really good for the gallbladder, but especially those minerals. Now, also mullein. Mullein is filled with minerals. Mullein is generally, said to help heal lungs and that sort of thing. But if your body, you've been depleted in minerals, you might want to try like a mullein tea or a mullein tincture or something like that, because it's so dense in minerals. But another one I wanted to mention here, this is something I take that's called pure black shilajit. I don't think the camera's going to be able to pick it up, but it's called pure black shilajit. There's a couple different websites I will link below where you can order this from. This stuff is powerful, incredibly intense, detoxifying, but also it's like jam-packed with minerals. In fact, I have had one of my nutritional teachers tell me that you could probably be lost out in the forest for like 2 or 3 months if you had enough water you just put in like a pea size of this stuff into some sort of warm liquid and it dissolves and you drink it. You could live off of, because of the condensed, really good ancient minerals that are in that pure black shilajit. If you're putting that into your water for, I guess it depends on the person, but 1 to 3 months or whatever, you could live off of it. Okay. And not only that, but probably in a really strong, healthy way. You'd probably flush out all kinds of wild stuff if you did that kind of a cleanse. But okay, so there's that. Now, all right, we talked about body parts. Let's go to gemstones. Let's do that. So the dedicated zodiacal birthstone, my goodness, this video is going to be like 1 million hours long. The dedicated zodiacal birthstone for the sign of Capricorn, there it is garnet. This right here is garnet, which is a beautiful stone. I feel like the reason that this is so dedicated to Capricorn is because it's a very grounding stone. It's good for building. It's like, even though it's a red stone, which red stones can create kind of like a little frustration, or that's because it's red. Red can create stimulation, but also can create frustration. It just depends on what kind of person you are. So you might want to be a little bit careful with garnet, but it can be very grounding, but also can create things like stability. Okay, it's a really good one. If you're somebody who's got, say you're like me and you got a bunch of Pisces and Cancer energy and you're flowy and you don't have any earth in your chart and you're not grounded, garnet might be a really good one for you to have around. And also not only that, but if you get it raw, it's actually pretty darn affordable. Okay, the next one I was going to mention would be, we will bring up, let's do this. Let's do malachite. So this right here is malachite, which I've actually brought up for the last few videos because this is one I've been holding on to lately. It's a really good stone that definitely resonates well with the sign of Capricorn, but it's kind of like a little bit of a softer version of an emerald. Emeralds can be almost overwhelmingly powerful for some people. This is, I'd say, pretty darn safe. I can't think of a chart where I would say, no, I wouldn't use malachite. I mean, it might not be the best stone for everybody, but I don't think this stone is one that would create any kind of damage in anybody's life. I think it's very protective. In fact, as I've mentioned before, this and also lapis were the two top recommended stones from Edgar Cayce. Now, malachite can be good for kind of calming nerves, but also not too like sedating. It's almost like an adaptogen for the nerves or something. So it's not like you're going to be tired by holding onto a piece of malachite. It's more like clarity, but also protective. Okay, malachite, great stone to have. Honestly, not just for this full moon, but just an overall really good stone to have. I'm gonna hold it up here because it is just such a beautiful stone. Okay, now let's see. The other one I was going to mention is tiger's eye, which also resonates well. Look, you can see the reflection of my ring light do this thing. But this is tiger's eye, which is another very beautiful stone, which definitely resonates well with the sign of Capricorn. This one is really good for willpower. Okay, the combination of Venus and Mars going through the sign of Leo to increase the willpower within us, mixed in with a little bit of tiger's eye, can be great. Okay, really good. Another protective and grounding stone. So there's that. I feel like, oh, there's another one I wanted to mention. I could go on all day with stones. So tourmaline, also black tourmaline, any kind of tourmaline actually resonates pretty darn well with the sign of Capricorn, but very specifically green tourmaline does. And this, even though it looks black on the camera, if we bring it out in the sun, this is one of my favorite stones. It's this very dark green tourmaline, which some of you know, I've had this piece of black tourmaline in my life for so many years, and it has kept me safe through so many things. At least I feel very confident in saying that. All tourmaline is very, very protective. The green tourmaline is kind of, well, all right, let's get into this. So this sign of Capricorn has a lot to do with, the ambition and the strength, and can also have a little bit to do with fear. It's a blend. As I mentioned, this is the mountain goat. The mountain goat is certainly not the top of the food chain. And so it does deal with fear. It's the fear of not making it to the top. Well, that green energy, that green stone can, again, help us to adapt, kind of get the nervous system in check, but also keep us protected. Okay, so there's that. Now, also on that note, as I mentioned, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Well, Saturn's stone is blue sapphire. Now, blue sapphire, it's a very particular stone that could be perfect for some people, but not for others. Okay, because that blue sapphire can be restricting. It can bring like rigidness into people's life because it's Saturn's cold blue ray through blue sapphire. Okay. But for some people who are dealing with major inflammation and frustration, they got Mars all up in their butt. Then the sapphire, and I say that because Mars is the roar, as I mentioned, Mars is the aggressor. And that blue energy, also green energy, can do it, can kind of tame that. Okay, so I hope that made sense. I try to be careful about recommending that blue sapphire because it's, again, it could be great for some people, but certainly not for all. So the 3 gemstones I will be placing on top of my journal will definitely be that piece of garnet, the piece of malachite, and the tiger's arm. But again, you can always look below and see the full extensive list of Capricorn stones. Okay, so did I say everything I wanted to? I think I did. I think I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long. This felt like a very important video to make. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I do hope to hear from some of you. Until next time, namaste to all of you.